Welcome back. As we see the amazing moves being taken in the last 24 hours to deplatform an entire social media network because of one user on there. And again, they immediately reported this guy to the FBI. They gave all of his information to the FBI as soon as he was alleged to be the shooter. Nevertheless, in spite of what Facebook and Twitter and others have been allowed to do, they shut them down. And the question is, what do we do about this type of action? Now, I've talked in the past about George Gilder's book, how he is the one that he's just put out recently, Life After Google. He talks about the cryptocosm, which he calls a decentralized internet. He says the problem with the internet is the centralization and the way it's been taken over and controlled by a few corporations like Google, like Facebook, like Twitter, and so forth. And also the government censorship. And the person I'm talking to now, Justin, is CEO and co-founder of Substratum. You can find them at substratum.net. Justin Tabb is the person who is the CEO and co-founder. And what they're trying to do is set up a foundation, a structure for a decentralized web. So we want to talk to him and have him explain to us exactly what is going on with this. They've been able to penetrate China's Great Firewall with just a minimal number of nodes. And they've also been able to get into Russia and into Iran. So I want to talk to him about how this works, because this is exactly the type of thing that George Gilder believes is going to happen with developers coming out with a new decentralized model that allows us to be in control, that allows us to have our privacy. And I think, as Justin has referred to this is like a next generation VPN is a way you can think of this if you know what a VPN is. But joining us now is Justin Tabb. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Glad to be here. Thanks, David.
Tell us a little bit about Substratum and what you've been able to accomplish in just this last week. I think you just did the recent test where you got into Iran. Is that correct?
That's right. So Substratum was founded a little over a year ago. We were crowdfunded to fight global censorship, and basically with the premise of being able to decentralize the internet, make it free and open for everyone. Everyone have the same access to the same information. Everyone have the freedom to say what they want online. And so we've worked about for the past year along those goals, with our initial goals being China, Russia, and Iran. Because those were the three most heavily censored locations at the time. So just in the past week, we've been able to demonstrate that the software really does work just with a minimal number, 4 nodes. That's all it takes to make the product work. And we've been able to circumnavigate the Great Firewall in China and demonstrate, Facebook in China, YouTube in China, Twitter in China. And then we went on to demonstrate that as well in Russia. The big ban in Russia is obviously Telegram. And so demonstrate Telegram working inside of Russia. And then inside of Iran, just about everything is banned. So we went through and did the same demonstration in Iran, showing Facebook, Google, Open Google, YouTube, and Twitter, and some others working in Iran.
Now, when you're talking about nodes, you're talking about users, right? So when we
right.
have a lot
so
of
nodes,
users, would be a lot of nodes that, yeah.
Yes, so nodes being someone who has turned on their computer and ran the software and agreed to basically serve up requests. So the minimal number to make that work within our topology is 4, but the goal being obviously that there's hundreds of thousands or millions, and this software actually works backwards as of most software, that the more users that get online, the slower it gets. With us, the more users that get online, the faster it gets.
And probably the easier it is for people to penetrate things like the Great Firewall. Is that correct?
Correct. It becomes you become more anonymized the more users that there are.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how this looks like a VPN and how it is different from a VPN, because some people are familiar with virtual private networks, and it's a way that you can mask your identity from people who want to follow you or who want to censor you. Is something that people have used in the jurisdictions you're talking about in China, Russia, Iran, and so forth. And but they have also become the targets of those governments. So tell us a little bit about how this works, how it's different from a VPN, and how it wouldn't be targetable like a VPN is by those governments.
Sure, in a couple ways. So VPNs are a little bit over 20 years old, the first VPN protocol being PPTP, or point-to-point tunneling protocol invented by Microsoft in 1996. And so the way VPN works is it establishes a point from your computer to a single server, right? And that's where the breakdown is. It's a single point of failure, which is the same failures as all these centralized technologies. And so what happens is, as you saw on March 31st this year, China banned the use of overseas VPNs. Since then, people continue to put up different VPN links, but as a Chinese user put who reviewed our software, the Chinese government's usually able to knock those down within about 30 minutes because it is a single point. Substratum works much differently in that there's not a single point of connection. There's potentially thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of points of connection. Again, the more users that come online, the stronger it gets, the harder it gets to block. Additionally, VPN is its own protocol, and so it's identifiable from a network analyzation standpoint, whereas Substratum is not. It works within the standard TCP stack, so it masquerades as things that it's not. So from a network analyzation perspective, it may look like the person's loading up a normal web page inside that they're allowed to view. It may look like they're streaming a video. It may look like they're playing an online game, but it does not look like a Substratum packet because they're not. It's basically pretending to be something that it's not. That's why we call it masquerading.
George Gilder is a very interesting thinker. He wrote a book that Steve Jobs, a prior book that he had, Steve Jobs pretty much made required reading inside of Apple. He's talked about life after Google, and he's talking about decentralization being one of the core things, but he's got a 10 points where he talks about things. The very first one he says is security first. He says it's not a procedure, it's not something that you add on afterwards, it is built into the architecture. And I think that's a key thing, it seems like with Substratum, that it's built into the architecture and that you prioritize the security and this privacy.
That's right. When we started out, we basically have, for all of our products, not only this one, but for all of our products, a list of core tenets that we go by. And the very first tenet is ease of use paired with security, because I don't believe that it can be easy to use if it's not secure. And so we've gone through great lengths to ensure that people are very protected, very anonymous, and we want to make sure that upon the release of our final production version that there's absolutely no way that a government entity or that a corporation can basically pinpoint a Substratum user.
The other thing he said, security first, but then the next thing he said, second rule is centralization is not safe. And that's, I think, a key thing about what you're talking about. The fact that you've got these multiple nodes, they are difficult to identify as such, and they're distributed all over the place. And that is a key thing. The fatal conceit, he says, of these companies that have taken over the internet is their centralized model, where they're going to control everything from a central location. And in order to have security, you're going to have decentralization. I think that's a very important point.
That's absolutely right. I mean, you're not only, is this protecting individual users, but if you look at points of attack for hacking and cyber terror and things like that, centralization is really a terrible, terrible idea for that, because it gives attackers a single point to focus in on. And with Substratum, basically it's been spread out across, ideally, once we're done, millions of different points, and so it makes it nearly impossible to be breached.
And of course, it doesn't really work effectively for any number of things. I'm old enough to remember we had centralized processing, one giant mainframe that did all of the scientific processing for 2 universities, as well as all the administrative stuff. We all stood around in lines waiting to use this thing. It was a horrific experience for the user standpoint, and it didn't work very well, but it also compromised privacy, as we saw this thing decentralized with PCs, and then they centralized it again with Google and these other structures. That's the key thing. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to monetize that, because that is very important, and they are tied in with cryptocurrency as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Justin Tabb. He has a company called Substratum. You can find them at substratum.net. He's talking about creating a decentralized foundation for the internet, because right now things have gotten very centralized and very controlled, as you see with speech. He said they started this a little over a year ago. Their goal was to set up a decentralized internet for the protection of free speech. And boy, we really need this, and we need it quickly. I want to ask you now, Justin, what funds this? Because that's a real key thing. We have to have an awareness of where this is coming from. A lot of people didn't understand at the very beginning that if Google is offering you everything for free and Facebook is offering you everything for free, you are the product. And many people still don't understand that or the implications of that for their privacy. So how is Substratum, how will it be funded?
So the initial development of Substratum was done. We created our own cryptocurrency, named the same, Substratum, trades on a lot of markets out there, same as Bitcoin and Ethereum. Um, and so we did that to fund the development. The ongoing use of Substratum will be done through a tokenization model within the software. And basically the way that works is if you're serving requests, then you are being paid in Substratum tokens. And if you are using, then you are paying in with Substratum tokens. And so it's basically a perfect model. Really comes
Yeah,
out to
that is
more of a
good.
zero-sum game. At least you should always be in the positive. If you're leaving your machine on and being a good steward of the network and not manipulating it in the form of a botnet, then you should always be in the positive. And it just allows people to be compensated for sharing their computing resources with the world.
Okay, that's cool. That's fair, and that's upfront, and that's very important that people understand that that it's kind of you're having your resources used there, kind of like a mining service, but what you're doing at this point is you're passing around data, and then you're getting that monetized. Because if you don't have those rules up front, if they hide that from you, like we've seen with Facebook and Google, then that comes back to bite you. One of the things that I'm concerned about, I mean, you talked about how you were able to penetrate the government walls of censorship with China, with Russia, with Iran, and so forth, and being able to push Facebook, let's say, into Iran when Facebook doesn't
Mhm.
want you to, Iran doesn't want you to see Facebook. What about when Facebook doesn't want you to see somebody? I mean, that's the next level that we look at with this. I mean, it's at some point we've got to have a way to host things, and we have to have a way that we can not just monetize this, but we've got to even be worried, I think, about even domain names. We see what happened with Gab over the weekend just because they had somebody that was on their network that was also on Facebook. And we never see this
Yep.
kind of attack against Facebook or against Twitter when somebody that's a bad actor does something on their platform. But they took down Gab completely. They've lost their hosting. They've lost their financing. And of course, financing that could be done through cryptocurrency ultimately. But when they take down a site like that, we have to also be concerned that maybe they're going to even delist people's domain names because, ICANN could do that, I guess.
Yep.
What do you think about that aspect of free speech?
So absolutely. So that segues great into our next two products actually. So Substratum, the name literally means the foundation, and so the first product we built is the foundation of the decentralized web. The next component that we'll be building is Substratum Host, in which we'll take and actually allow
Ah,
you to host on the platform and
good.
share your content split up amongst millions of devices, which is even more secure because even if somebody hacks one of those devices, it's only a bit of data. Without all the other bits of data, which only the whole system knows to make it up, it means nothing. So that will take care of things like what happened with Gab. And then
Hmm.
our third product is actually a product called CryptoPay, which is a payment gateway system for cryptocurrencies. Allows any user who wants to purchase something to be purchased with the cryptocurrency of their choosing, and the vendor who is selling something to get paid in the cryptocurrency or the fiat of their choosing. So we've
Oh,
really
that's
tried to
excellent.
cover the whole spectrum.
Oh, yeah, you absolutely have. When are you going to be rolling this out? Are you still in beta testing for Substratum?
So we're still in beta testing for Substratum node, and that's we're scheduled to towards the end of the year. We're pushing towards a release for that. But Substratum host will come out after that. We'll start going into beta testing after that, and CryptoPay is actually a little bit ahead of where Substratum host is. So we already have a set of users, two different companies who have agreed to come on and be our early beta testers for CryptoPay, and so we're excited to work with them.
Well, I'll tell you, it can't be too soon because this is really
It
ramping
can't.
up. It is really accelerating. And it was August the 6th that they took InfoWars off. And then it was about 2
Yep.
months later, they took off 800 sites. The majority of those were Trump supporting conservative sites, but not all of them. There was a lot of libertarian sites that did not support President Trump. There were a lot of left wing sites, some of them that were dancing and celebrating when free speech was taken away from InfoWars, because they're looking at anybody that's not part of the core establishment. And so this is coming very rapidly. The movements that we saw against Gab this weekend are very alarming as well. And there's a data point here. I've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We got a guy named Jamie Fly, and he was talking at a Berlin security conference, bragging about the fact that they'd taken down these 800 sites and saying there was more to come, implying that they were actually going to take down the websites themselves, not just take them off of social media, but they were going to purge them further on, and calling all of them Russian agents, whether they're conservative, libertarian, or left-wing. They're all Russian agents, and we're going to take everybody down. This is really coming from a guy who worked for the Bush administration. He's a neocon. He's been a project for a new American century and so forth. These are people who are at the core of the establishment. They're nonpartisan, but they are deep state individuals who want to take down everybody with this. And we need to have a product like what you're creating right now.
Well, it really is hitting a point, too, where you just look at the progression over the last year. When we initially started this, again, like I said, we had 3 targets because those were the most highly censored at the time. But just since then, you had the net neutrality repeal in the United States. You have the Copyright Directive Article 13 in the European Union. And that really goes and should push developers to say, hey, Substratum's providing us this platform, this foundation to build on top of. We need to go and start building these new tools that can't be censored using the power of the blockchain and decentralization, because what the European Union one is doing is censoring within the platform and saying basically, if that's why they call it the meme killer, because if you upload something and they basically have to store it and then within 24 hours remove it. Vietnam had almost the exact same ruling. So it really has progressed very rapidly. And when you guys got taken off, I told everybody that, hey, whether you agree with them or not, this is a big thing, and you should be shouting from the rooftops that this is not fair, because the next one could be you.
I appreciate that. And I saw on Reddit where you're talking about the fact that you're coming on here and you got criticized by one individual there, said that InfoWars is a societal cancer. And some people took him to task for that. And he goes, I don't care. You violate somebody's terms of services. Well, I would like for this guy, maybe he does know, maybe he works for Google, or maybe he works for a project for a new American century. Maybe he can tell me exactly what it was, because I never received even a warning, let alone 3 violations. I was just immediately terminated during a broadcast. I have received over 8,000 emails now from YouTube. They will not respond to my formal requests, and they will not give me an answer. They just keep sending me a thing. A complaint has been received. Your channel has been terminated. They flushed down years of my work, and that's something I think they're going to see some lawsuits from people in terms of torturous service. But I think we just need to move on from Google. We know what they're about.
I agree.
We know that don't be evil is a lie, and what we really need is what you're offering right now with Substratum and the later products for hosting and for taking payments and so forth. That's really what we need. We need to grow an entirely new infrastructure for the internet. That's what George Gilder is talking about. I think that's going to happen. I think you got a great product lined up there.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to when that's going to happen. Again, you can find that Substratum. I'm saying that correct, right? Substratum?
Yes, sir. Substratum.
Substratum.net. And you can find information about that. And they're on a beta test right now, but they're going to be finishing up with that. And then they're going to move on to website hosting as well as payment processing. And they've been a cryptocurrency for a while. And as he pointed out, the way this thing is funded is transparent. You're going to pay for it as you use it. You're going to earn money as you provide those services for other people. This is the way it's going to be done, folks. I think we need to fight them on every level that we can. We need to go back to the Supreme Court decisions, back to 1946, Marsh versus Alabama. I'll mention that again. Every time we talk about this, I'll mention that. They said at that time that even if the public square is privately owned, they can't throw somebody off of it. That was a Jehovah's Witness that they were throwing out in that public square. That was a company that owned the entire town. Jack Dorsey has said that his platform is a public square. He has said it 5 times in a congressional hearing. He said it another 3 times after he said he was joking about the First Amendment. He said, yeah, but we're still a public square. Well, let's enforce that Supreme Court ruling. Well, that's it for our broadcast today. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck to Justin Tabb. We really need the product that he's working on.
The scientists at InfoWars Life have created a powerful formula for inflammatory support and joint support. Discover the power of ancient medicine with Bodies. Bodies contains one of the most potent forms of turmeric available. Turmeric has been used for thousands of years and is one of the most studied herbals today. It is well known in traditional medicine for its soothing properties. Our pure turmeric extract plus piperine from black pepper makes for optimal absorption to help boost and support your flexibility, mobility, joint function, immune system, and so much more. Regular turmeric root from the store only contains 1 to 5% of active ingredients, but our turmeric root extract contains over 95% of the active ingredients. Bodies combines turmeric with organic herbs such as spearmint, sage, lemon balm, and thyme to work synergistically for full body support. Try Bodies today at InfoWarsLife.com or call us at 188-253-3139.